One of the first videos I made on this channel was reacting to a video that just showed up on my homepage of a guy who's 27 and never had a girlfriend. So I figured I would check out some never had a boyfriend videos. So we're going to go through some of those. Then we're going to go through this video by Amaranth, what to do if you have a crush on a girl, because I made another video reacting to her live on Kick, and she gave this 17-year-old the worst dating advice I had ever heard. She told him, now she didn't know exactly that he was 17, but I forget, she might have thought he was like 20. At some point he revealed that to her, that he's like, hey, I'm 17. I think it was after she called him a brokey. Like, she's like, well, why don't you establish? Why don't you have a career and like a house and car and all this stuff? And she's like, well, I make millions of dollars. Blah, blah, blah. If I can do it, you can do it. It's like, no, this guy can't just strap on a pair of fake boobs and go on OF and make millions of dollars, or go on Twitch or Kick and just get a guaranteed audience because of that. And it's like ridiculous. And to tell somebody, especially a 17-year-old, because the kid was like, whoa, I'm 17, but she didn't back off of these points at all. She just told him, like, you should have like at least $1 million. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? This kid's like 2 months out of high school. Like, what? And this is terrible advice, that you need to be like a millionaire. Most people, do you understand that like 99 point something percent of people aren't millionaires? Like, you're crazy. This is some of the worst advice you could possibly give somebody, is that they can't be happy and they can't contribute anything to a relationship unless they're like some kind of millionaire and have established all these different things. It's like, no. Like, and especially a kid that's 17, it's like, dude, you don't need to even be focused on any of that stuff. You need to be focused on finding yourself, finding what you want out of a relationship, not, oh, well, you shouldn't even be one because you're not a millionaire. But we'll go over whatever she has to say there later. For this video is I'm 31 and I've never had a boyfriend, by the Hopeless Romantic Club podcast. So she's probably just reacting to a viewer submitted statement.
I'm 31 years old and I've never had a boyfriend. I've never been in a relationship, had a situationship, been in a talking phase. I don't even remember the last time I had a crush, to be honest. And for the longest time, I was so ashamed of this fact. I was so scared of what others thought of me and how they would judge me and think that there's something wrong with me or that I'm a weirdo or a freak. But none of that is true. And there are actually thousands of us who have had the same experience, or should I say, lack of experience. So welcome to the Hopeful Romantics Club, my new podcast where I'll be diving deeper into this conversation and sharing my journey of dating intentionally for the first time.
I mean, you're 31 and you've never been in a relationship. I'm sorry, but you are weird. Like, maybe you're not in such a like small minority as some people probably believe that they are, but you are weird. You are fundamentally failing at a core part of life. Even if you're like not into being into a relationship and you want to be single or whatever, that's fine. But if you haven't even experienced the relationship, then you don't even know that about yourself for sure. And I'd say your like late teens and early 20s are entirely about finding yourself, finding what you like and don't like. And a large part of that is relationships. And it's so, no. It's not okay.
I'll also be interviewing guests, and we'll be hearing from others who've never been in a relationship, those who've dated a lot, those who are already in relationships, because I love meet cute stories. They truly give a single gal like me so much hope and encouragement. So, who is your host? Like I said, my name is Naomi. I am a Canadian living in Los Angeles, California, and I'm actually a full-time content creator. I've been doing it full-time for the past 2.5 years, my main platform being TikTok. I started doing comedy content, which ended up transitioning into lifestyle, like vlogs and hauls. I like to call it cheesy basic bitch content. And then earlier in March, I created a special secret account where I talked about my dating journey. And so this is truly just an expansion of that. I'm a Christian and my faith is the most important thing in my life. That
right there. That is, so many of these guys who have never dated the types of videos like this that I've watched from the male perspective, that is one of the most common things amongst them, is that they're religious to some extent, and that gives them all these like very bad perceptions of dating. You need to, I'm sorry, religious people, but you kind of need to live in the modern age to some extent, because I'm sorry, you go out on a date with a woman, she's probably already had sex with 10 dudes in her life. If she's like 25 or older, easily. Like look at the stats. Most females lose their virginity at like 13, 14 years old. You got to live in reality here, that you're not going to find this like virginal, super religious trad wife. That's not going to happen. A lot of those women, like, I don't care if a woman's a virgin. I think that such a notion is like wildly ridiculous and like demented. And that kind of stuff really puts me off to like the black pill community, and the stuff like I was saying with Amaranth, where they tell men that, oh, you're inferior if you're not a millionaire, if you're not 6'5", and that's stupid. That's a bad thing to tell men. That doesn't help anyone. It's completely absurd to tell men that they need to be that. But also this idea that the red pill community puts out, a lot of the ideas they put out are ridiculous, which bothers me, because fundamentally, right? Look at Fresh and Fit. They make some good points about how things like the legal system are rigged against men. Society is rigged against men. How women have it way better in society, in the workplace, in education, in like everything to do with the legal system. Our entire society and realistically our economy is entirely geared towards women. A lot of people overlook some simple statistics that women make like 80% of consumer decisions, right? Because a lot of men are either in relationships or married to a lot of women. And the women, for the most part, like maybe the man chooses what specific type of car he gets. But outside of that, most of the final decisions are made by women, because men kind of we don't bother ourselves with frivolous things like, oh, what color are we going to paint this wall? What kind of decoration are we going to put here? What kind of brand of soap are we going to use? Like, it's so arbitrary to us. But think about that. 80% of all consumer decisions are made by women. That's insane. And we live in a world where everything is geared towards money. Think about it. Every government in the world, pretty well, is just bought. They're just bought and paid for, right? They make decisions based off of who gives them money. They're these giant donors. And these companies, all they care about is making money. That's what fuels like capitalism and our global economy. So when you think about it, everything in the world is favorable to women. That's just the reality. And it bothers me because like compare Fresh and Fit to Abba and Preach. Abba and Preach are like, you could consider them in the red pill community. They kind of distance themselves because of the ridiculousness, you need to be rich, you need to be obsessed with your self appearance, you need to be waking up at 5 a.m. and hitting the gym. All this like ridiculous, genuine, like toxic BS. They distance themselves from that, but fundamentally they also understand like, hey, men have major issues in society that get completely overlooked, right? That's why like Fresh and Fit and Abba and Preach have been lumped together, is because they both kind of have talked about these things. It's just that Fresh and Fit decides to go more towards this like incel, grifty, black pill nonsense, and other people don't. And it causes this giant divide because you have these people who are manipulating very impressionable, very stupid men into, oh, you got to buy my course and I'll teach you how to be a millionaire Chad. And dumb.
Really shapes who I am, how I see the world, how I live my life, my purpose, and all of that. So definitely is at the center of dating and what I'm looking for in my future spouse. For my entire life, I truly believe that God was hiding me. It felt like he had a Harry Potter invisibility cloak that he just...
When you say God is hiding you, I feel like with a lot of religions, there's this huge dogma, and this dogma that they push more than other dogmas is the idea that like you need to not be having sex, which is just wild in the context of modern society where it's just not what people are doing at all. And so how are you going to date, right? There's this guy named Skippy Jessup who records his datings. And he kind of is what got me into making YouTube videos. I think I made a reaction video to him, but I don't know if I ever uploaded it. Now this guy is like the Omega cringe lord, the real life 30-year-old virgin. Or 40-year-old virgin, I guess. I think he wasn't quite 40 at the time, whatever. But the problem with these religious people is, hey, why are you're going on a date with this person who's not religious, who's probably expecting you to hook up on the first date. So where these people are at, like mentally going into this date, they're in totally different like ballparks. They're on like separate planets, and you don't need to be on separate planets. There can be like a go-between. And I'm sorry, but it's way less likely that people are going to join you on your like religious dogmatic planet. You're better off if you're on that planet going over to this, we don't care about that stuff. We're going to live our lives and just choose to be good people sort of thing.
Just tossed on over me. For a long time, that did bring me comfort. I'm like, okay, God's got my love life in control. He's saving me from heartbreak and trauma and all of that. But then I recently heard a quote from a psychologist that really clicked things into place. And he said, you can have trauma from things that never happened. And I definitely feel like I have trauma from having never been pursued.
How irresistible are cheesy crackers?
They're pretty irresistible.
Seen, asked out, and all of that. I really struggle with self-esteem, self-confidence, how I see myself and my self-worth. I'm happy to say there has been improvement within the last couple of months, but it's definitely been tough. And it definitely all comes in waves, especially loneliness. I'm actually just coming out of a deep, dark, feels like a tsunami kind of wave of loneliness where the future feels hopeless and I feel like I'm forever going to be alone. Here I am trying to...
I wonder why she thinks that in particular. Like, it's funny that somebody who's religious, and you think the core selling point of any religion is going to be like, hey, once you pass on, you're going to paradise, right? That's the whole selling point of the entire thing. So to feel like so hopeless and depressed is, I feel like it's funny that a lot of people can't really connect the dots that maybe you having these dogmatic beliefs is what's causing you to feel that way, because it's certainly what's causing you to have absolutely no dating life. Because even religious people, I'm going to be honest, right? There's a reason that there is a cliche, a stereotype of the Catholic schoolgirl. Like, if you've ever dated a Catholic, they are typically like women who went to a Catholic school, usually are very very frisky, for lack of a better term, to put it nicely.
Convince you that there's nothing wrong with me for having never been in a relationship, but I don't even know if I've really convinced myself. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I just see the ugliest human being ever, and I attribute that to why I've never been desired or pursued by a guy. Personally, the biggest source of my self-esteem is my acne and my skin, which I don't know if you can even see through the camera right now, but in real life, it's there. I've got the scars, I've got the dark spots. I don't even leave my house without foundation, and I know everyone struggles with something, whether it's their nose, whether it's their weight, whatever it is. But I think one thing that God is truly trying to teach me is that no man on earth will love me and love you as much as God can. And so I'm kind of in a space where I'm just leaning into him, allowing him to reveal who I am. And if you're not Christian, I just want you to know that you are a beloved child of God. He loves you. He created you with a purpose. You are a masterpiece of his creation. Like, look at the sunset, look at the mountains.
You're 31. You're 31. You're 31 freaking years old, and you've never been in a relationship. What do you mean I'm waiting for God to reveal me, reveal what kind of woman I am? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? This you from a book, like a book that's like 1,000 years old, like 2,000 years old. I like what do religious people do? Like, people who are like this, like, what are you doing? Why do you have to go on this like insane lifelong journey to find yourself? Like, what are you even talking about? Are you finding yourself on TikTok? Like, what? Just think about what you like. What would you like out of a relationship? What kind of person you would like to be with? Which isn't that complicated. There's some pretty basic standards you can apply. It's real, like, what I want out of somebody I date. I'm going to be honest. I'll just lay it all out there. I want somebody who's fun, who's positive, who has some kind of goals that they want to work towards and that they're going to work towards. I want them to be, because I want to help them to work towards those goals. I want them to help me work towards my goals. I want somebody who's a decent person. I want somebody who's attractive. That's like 6 things. It's incredibly basic. Just somebody who's fun and positive. That alone is like enormous. This isn't complicated. Like, what God has to reveal who you are. You're 31 years old and you have this deep system of core beliefs. Now, I get it. Like, the Bible is this like really complicated anthology that is loaded with contradictions. There's animal sacrifice. There's all kinds of things that will make you burn for eternity that are completely absurd. So it's like it's intentionally overly complicated so you don't think about it too hard. But what these people do is they think about it too hard. They spend like decades trying to decode this overly complicated puzzle instead of just like going by their own intuition, going by figure out yourself. Like you're relying on God, which is ultimately mostly like, I don't know if God exists, but he ain't helped me figure out myself. I just took it upon myself because I wanted to be a happier person and lead a better life. So that's what I did when I like was in my early 20s. I'm just like, all right, who am I? I quickly figured that out. And by quickly, I mean like 3 years, right? By the time I was 23, I knew exactly who I was. I dug into every possible detail of who I was and thought about who I wanted to be, and I made changes and continue to make changes to this day. This idea that like God is this, you're waiting for God to give you a vision of who you are. You might be waiting your entire life for that. You're kind of throwing your whole life away. You're 31 and you've never had a boyfriend. You're making a video because you understand that's an issue. You talk about how it's got you depressed and hopeless. Like if your God's so great, why are you living such a miserable, hopeless existence? Like, shouldn't he be like guiding you? Shouldn't he be making things like clear to you? Why is he making it overly complicated?
You're actually more valuable and beautiful than all of that. And again, these are words that I'm saying out loud. I know it's head knowledge, and I'm just trying to bring it to heart knowledge at this point in my life. Like I mentioned, I grew up in
Oh my God. That is one of the cringiest things I've ever heard. It's head knowledge, but I need to be heart knowledge. So whatever thoughts go through your head, you're like, oh, I'm more valuable than that. So you know in your heart you're not? Gee, what the hell? What the hell? It should be the opposite way around. You should be like, in your heart, I know I'm a good person. I know I deserve all this stuff. But then your head is actually what's like weighing you and like causing doubt, second guessing. And the thing is, you actually need to listen to both, because your head is going to bring you back to reality. That you're really, what worth are you talking about? It blows my mind when people talk about worth, but they never go into detail. They never explain why they're so worthy of so much. Like, and what, are other people not worthy? And what are you worthy of? You're choosing not to date people. What the hell? It's so insane to me when people are like this. Like, oh, it's the same thing when male incels do it. And I know I get comments, you overuse the term incel, but it's true. Like, it's exactly what they say is, oh, you know, I'm worthy of this, like, a 9 out of 10 trad wife, this great, like, wonderful existence. What are you talking about? You put in zero effort to pursue women, to make yourself attractive to women, to become a fun and positive person who has like goals and direction in your life. You choose to not be that. So you don't deserve like the top shelf of women. You just don't. And this woman, it's like she's saying, what she's saying there with this like worthiness is she thinks she deserves a top shelf man. And she doesn't. Because those top shelf men, guess what? They've been with like 50 plus women in their lives. And the women they go out with could suck a golf ball through a straw. I'm sorry, like, it's the world we live in. Stop living. I'm not gonna, what I refuse to do on this channel is feed into a delusional false worldview. Because that's the problem that exists with so many people. That's why so many people have such big problems, is they're living very detached from reality. And I will not perpetuate that ever. But let's be serious. A top shelf guy, which I don't even classify myself as, like, I've been with women who could suck a golf ball through a straw. I like smoke shows, like, oh my god.
The outskirts of Toronto in a little suburb, and it never felt like home, which is why I never really was intentional about dating there, because I'm like, I don't want to date a Toronto man. I don't even want to live here. But then when I came to my dream city of Los Angeles and decided to be more quote unquote intentional with dating, I found myself.
If you're not familiar with Canada and Toronto, pretty much everyone who's not from Toronto can't stand Toronto. Just people there act like it's the greatest, like it's absolutely absurd to live anywhere else. And it's like the New York of Canada. So it's smaller in population. It's got a population of like 5 million something or whatever. And it's just like overly crowded. You got far less cool stuff than like New York has. It's cleaner than New York. Like it's less of a kind of cesspool, but you have this overall like very douchey, yuppie self-importance of the people who live there. And I can't think of a place that I would want to live less than Toronto. Like, I would never move to Toronto. You'd have to pay me an astronomical amount of money.
Struggling. Again, a side effect of that low self-esteem is that I cannot even make eye contact with men. I see a cute guy, I'm immediately like eyes to the floor. And I'm learning that like guys need girls to drop the handkerchief, I still don't know how to say that word, because they too are afraid of rejection. My friends have even pointed out that when we're in group conversations and a cute guy comes in, I kind of turn into that Homer Simpson meme where I'm like disappearing into the bushes. I become a shell of a human being. I'm not my normal like outgoing and bubbly and funny self. And one thing I learned through the mindset coach that I'm seeing is that it comes from a limiting belief that I'm ugly and I am unworthy, like to talk to a cute guy. Yeah. Again, I told you, trauma from things that didn't.
So this is something I may as well mention, because a lot of times these women who say, "Oh, I'm the prize. I'm a 10. I'm so worthy of so much. I deserve such, like, a top shelf man." Women who say this is what they actually feel about themselves in their heart. They know. Well, in their heads too. But they know deep down that that's BS, that's not real. They actually have a very negative perception of themselves, but they just want to, like, flex, act better than other women. That's kind of what they're doing, is they're trying to one up other women. So they pretend like that's this thing they have, and they also want to be like, what's the word? Is altruistic the right word? They want to pretend like they're pushing out this positivity, in that, so they'll tell other women that, like, hey, you're a 10, you're a queen, and it's completely absurd and false. They know it, and they especially know it about themselves in reality, regardless of what weird flexing they try to do.
Didn't happen. Trauma from never having been in a relationship. The hardest thing has definitely been that I am for sure a hopeful romantic. I know normal people say the word hopeless romantic, but I'm hopeful that God is writing the best love story, and he's gonna make my meet cute better than any rom-com out there. But yeah, I devour rom-coms. I love them. I live for them.
That doesn't surprise me either. I just made a video where this is what women like this is what they say. This is what they say every time. Oh, these romantic comedies, these movies. I'm going to have this movie-like romance. Like Ryan Gosling is going to come out of nowhere. No, that's never going to happen. That's nothing close to reality. That's so far from actual dating. Right? Let's live in reality for a second. I said it earlier in the video. Most females lose their virginity at 13, 14 years old, right? They're not these, like, 30-year-old, virginal, like, quirky girl who this, like, 10 out of 10, super awesome, super, like, committed dreamboat is fallen in love for, right? Like, we live in the real world where people have tons of options. Men have tons of options. And you're not competing with them, with other women at all. You're pretending like you are. You're saying, "Oh, I'm worthy. I'm this. I'm that." But you're not at all. You're choosing not to be. You're not dating men at all. You're not building Riz at all. You're not being that fun person to be around. Like, oh my God, you're not, like, disastrous looking. You're average. You're an average woman. If all you did was make yourself fun and bubbly and jokey, which you're smiling in this video. You seem bubbly and positive. Or, like, you could be positive. You could have a positive energy if you released yourself from this religious dogma. Because I'm sorry, but a lot of religion is just, like, judging other people and this crazy pride and superiority complex. A lot of it's, like, truly awful. If you could separate yourself from that and just become, like, a genuinely positive, fun person, oh my God, men would pursue you easily for like, no question. Both, like, guys you work with, guys you're friends with, random guys you encounter out and about. It would just happen so easily. But you're probably giving off this horrible vibe of being terribly unapproachable and empty and quiet and, like, the lights are on but nobody's home. That's the vibe you're probably giving off pretty hard here. I'm just so tired of hearing this from women on here. Women who have, like, haven't had a relationship talk about a pure fantasy fiction. Ridiculous, wacky fiction. Like, some of the most unrealistic pieces of fiction. Right? Like, look at the movie Marriage Story. Right? Adam Driver, Scarlett Johansson, where pretty much the entire movie is them arguing. That's what being in a relationship often is. There's ups, there's downs. It's never this, like, storied, magical, mystical, love story. That doesn't exist. You will never find that in your life. You will never find anything like that. It flat out doesn't exist. And you would know that if you literally got into one relationship. This is why it's so outrageous for you to be 31 and have never had a boyfriend, because you aren't even learning like the basics, the fundamental stuff people learn in their teenage years or their early 20s. Like you're once you actually get into a relationship, you're going to be like lost and confused. And the longer you wait, the worse it will be. Because if romantic comedies, my God, like just some of the stupidest, well, ridiculous, unrealistic films in the entire, like, of all genres of film, they're often the most unrealistic. Even fantasy, sci-fi, because of the unrealistic setting and plot, they often have to make the characters quite human to ground it to something, right? Romantic comedies, because it's supposed to be in the setting of reality for the most part, it's like they go insanely over the top, where things like cheating doesn't really exist. Like, my God. Or if it does, it's like the most positive thing ever, right? Like the movie The Notebook. She cheats on her husband with this dude and like leaves her husband for this dude. You know what part of that is real? The cheating on the husband, not the leaving some husband for somebody else. That does happen, but it ain't no weird simp that's been building a house for you for the last 10 years when he hasn't even heard from you. That's not real. That's not remotely real. That's like 10 levels away from reality.
Such a sucker for them, and so my entire life I was kind of expecting this.
Exactly. You're a sucker, right? This isn't a new thing for religious people at all.
Moment of a guy will just see me, come up to me and be like, "You're the most beautiful girl on earth," and then ask me out. And of course that's...
She's about to say that's not reality, but then why is she bringing it up like it is?
Happened. So when I moved to LA, a big wake-up call was the lack of effort that I had put in my dating life for the past 30 years. In every other aspect of my life, with friends, with my work, I always knew I had to put in effort, and I did all that I could to make those dreams a reality. For instance, I really wanted Christian friends growing up and never had any around me, like at school or at work. And I really was expecting them to kind of just show up on my door until God's like, you need to seek them out. And so I did a Google search. I found like a young adult, non-denominational Christian group, started attending that. And now I have like amazing Christian friends in my life. With my career, I always knew I wanted to...
That's fine. You want to have Christian friends, but you need to mix it up. Like, this is what I mean about religious people being all judgmental and having this superiority complex. Now, I'm sure she has some friends that aren't religious, but you got to kind of start to understand. Religious people are freaking weirdos. They are weirdos, like, hyper-conservative. They want these, like, trad wives, like, barefoot in the kitchen wives. That's what they promote. That's what... When you go to church yourself, that's what you hear you should be, right? But instead, you're on TikTok. You're talking about your dating life on YouTube here. That ain't what you should be doing according to your religion. So you're not even actually, like, following the rules, or, like, maybe not the hard rules. Like, the rules are very... There's... These religions are loaded with an ocean of rules. Some are very, like, clear, like there's the 10 Commandments. And then there's other things that are clearly like, do this, don't do this. But you're talking about like a 2,000-year-old book, anthology. I know it's not quite that old, but you're talking about all this like collection of fairy tales, that ancient fairy tales that don't take into account anything to do with modern society. Dating has changed in the last 2,000 years. Society has changed. And maybe participate in that. Maybe get some friends, get some close friends. Honestly, like, find somebody who's dated a few people, who's been in relationships that aren't these weird religious relationships where you're looking to get married from square one. Like, talk to somebody who's been out and had some fun and, like, doesn't view dating in the lens of this needs to lead to marriage, this needs to lead to marriage, this needs to lead to marriage.
To be a full-time content creator and put out videos for 6 years until it finally happened. And yet with dating, I kind of expected to just sit back, live my life, and he would show up. Prince Charming would just show up at my door, or even just, again, spot me from a distance and ride up to me on a horse. And so I read this book called How to Get a Date Worth Keeping by Dr. Henry Cloud, who's a Christian psychologist, and he has this dating challenge.
A Christian psychologist.
5 new guys a week. You just need to talk to 5 guys, and it doesn't have to be in like a romantic sense.
That's good advice. That's better than doing literally nothing and not communicating with men at all.
It could be someone who is in line at a coffee shop, at a grocery store.
It's still clearly in the problem in doing that is you can't do it in the context of your religion, because then you're only going to connect with people who are in that religion, which hugely limits you. And even people who are religious, for the most part, are some of the greasiest people I ever met. Like
just start a conversation. And so I'm like, okay, I could do this. It's a challenge. I can put in the effort like I have in other areas of my life. Easy. Except I would go out into public and try to talk to guys.
It's not easy. You thought wrong, which is what you're saying. But you thought wrong. Because the problem is that sitting and reflecting on your dating life is easy. It's very easy. But what you need, the problem is that people don't actually do it the right way. They don't realize early on into doing that what they need to do is reflect on themselves, reflect on who they are, who they want to be, and who they want to be with. That part is very hard. Figuring out who you are, which you in this exact video said, you're waiting for God to reveal who you are. So you're probably going to wait another 10 years for God to reveal who you are. And then you're going to start to think about who you want to be and who you want to date. Don't you see how that doesn't work? And again, I tell people, do this in your late teens, early 20s. The second you're out of high school, start working on yourself. Don't worry about making money and have this giant career success and figuring out every avenue of life right away, because your basic fundamental happiness is figuring that out makes all other aspects so much easier. So much easier. If you can figure out how to exist within yourself, be truly comfortable and happy with yourself, then all other things will become more clear and more easy, right? Now, and stop falling into these traps that you need to be godly. You need to follow what Jesus wants you to do. You need to be a millionaire. You need this and that. No, you don't. Figure that out later. You got decades of time, right? Come on. Figure yourself out. Figure out who you are. Not through the lens of some weird filter of reading a book or diving into religion, talking to a pastor, whatever the hell you're doing. Because these people don't know who you are. They don't understand modern society whatsoever. Why would a 2,000-year-old book understand your life as making TikTok videos, right? It's a little foolish. You know who does understand you is your longest friend, your family, your parents, your siblings, who saw you as a baby and raised you, who saw you change from being freaking goo goo gaga sucking on a baby bottle, from your first words to your most recent words. They saw you change and develop and grow and become who you are. Talk to them. Talk to them about who you are, how you've changed, how you got to where you are. Because they're going to have a perspective on you that's going to be a lot more accurate than that you might even have on yourself. Or not fully, right? No, your family's not, they're not going to fully know who you are, right? I know myself better than anyone else ever could, but the thing is that my family, they have perspectives of me that no one else has, because guess what? They were there as I developed. They saw things. They saw me change and grow and learn. And some of those details are critical, absolutely critical to who you are, how you became who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses. You're never going to be happy with those unless you spend the time to really go over them.
And would just fail. I would just turn into that shell of a human being, and it just felt like this crazy spiral that honestly went on for months. But now I'm back at a place where I'm honestly living my life, working on becoming a better version of myself and healing and trusting that God's gonna make it happen in his perfect timing. I actually had an experience recently that kind of reminded me that I am quite possibly on the right track. I was walking in Santa Monica on my way to Sephora, and I was at a red light. Then all of a sudden I hear a voice from beside me, and this dude is just like, "Hey, do you know where this taco place is?" And I turn and I'm like, "No, sorry, I'm not from this neighborhood." And then the light turns green and I start walking, but he continues to walk beside me. And then he starts a conversation, tells me things about his life, that he's a politician, that he just moved to this neighborhood also 3 months ago, asked me questions about my life, and then eventually asked for my number. And I gave it to him. I honestly was not fully attracted to this guy, but that was honestly the first time I feel like I've ever been approached in public by a stranger like that. And again, I didn't put in the effort. Like, I didn't even know he was standing beside me until he spoke. I didn't have to like make eye contact or smile or do all the things that the books were telling me. And so I feel like that was a situation that God sent to remind me that it's not all on me. Like, I do not need to strive. I mean, he did.
What? I can't believe this. It's the same it's another fundamental problem that religious people have. It's like, "Oh, he works in mysterious ways. He's got a plan. It's all figured out. He knew this was going to happen. He's going to reveal who I am." No, God's not going to just magically solve all your problems. And men aren't going to magically solve all your problems. Men aren't the cause of your problems in your dating life. You do need to put in work. You're 31 and you've never had a boyfriend. You don't understand dating at all. That's a big problem that, yes, you need to focus on. Why are you shifting the blame? What the hell? What the hell? I don't even get it, right? Like, another thing about Toronto, she said she lives in the outskirts of Toronto. It's where she like grew up or something. And now she lives in LA. I don't know about LA, but Toronto has a lot of people of a similar ethnic background than her. And maybe that's also a kind of a thing where I don't know, like, how has she never been approached in public in Toronto? I've had random small talk conversations with people in Toronto, and I've only been there a few times. Like, certain areas, it's just like a sea of people, right? What? How? Like, what are you doing? She must hang out inside all the time and make TikTok videos, but because I don't even understand how you could lead a normal life. Most of that time being in a place, a population of like over 5 million people, just loads and loads, seas of people walking around, and you've never like been asked out. No one ever asked you for your number. What? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. That's like impossible. You must never go out in public ever.
Did turn out to be like kind of a weirdo. Lots of red flags when it came to texting him, and I never ended up actually going on a date with him. Again, it was a huge learning lesson and a moment for God to be like, "Girl, I got you." And so that's currently where I'm at in terms of my dating life. I'm not sitting at home and doing nothing. I've been taking tennis lessons, I'm doing improv classes, I'm going to like all the events and stuff like that. But I've taken off the pressure of trying to make it happen myself, and taken off the pressure of putting it all on me and my effort and my
it's also wildly delusional, this idea that like, oh, all of the effort was on me. She's saying she never once approached a guy and talked to him. Never started a conversation with a man. She maybe looked at a guy, made some eye contact in the grocery store. Maybe shot a smile. That doesn't mean green flag go for men, right? That doesn't mean they're just going to approach you. Especially in Canada. Like, you're from Canada. People are always smiling at each other, making contact, saying, good morning. Sorry, my cart bumped your cart. Like, you know what I mean? Like, making eye contact isn't doing anything. Talk to men. Get a male friend. What? Get a male friend that's not a like hardcore religious weirdo. And guess what? That man will have other male friends and get to know make friends. You network. Those friends have friends. Eventually, they're gonna, down the line, the chain of friends, there's gonna be some dudes. You know what I mean? Like, there's gonna be some dateable dudes. So, like, I can't stand it when people talk about how they put in effort and they put in zero effort. It's the same with these guys who, like, they've asked out 3 women in their entire life and they're like late 20s, early 30s. Like, no, you haven't put in any effort. Same with women. If you've never even talked to a man, you've never pursued a man at all. And it's really not like you have to say, hey, go out with me. You don't even have to do the asking out. Just strike up a conversation. She hasn't even done that, and she's going to act like, oh, well, I tried. I'm not even going to try anymore. It's hopeless, kind of, but maybe Prince Charming, maybe Ryan Gosling will roll up on a horse to my front door. Like, what? What are you talking about? Live in the real world for, like, a moment. Reflect for a moment, and your entire worldview will change.
Eye contact and all of that. And I know so many people have different opinions about this. I also, by the way, do not feel comfortable on dating apps.
No. Screw you, woman. Absolutely ridiculous. I know people have all these different views. Yeah, that's true. But you got to be able to cut through the BS. Come on. Like, you've grown up with the internet. You understand there is a million perspectives being put out there at all times. And you have to cut through. You have to instantly disregard like 90% of it. Do you not understand that you have to apply those filters? You have to find which information is actually good, right? Like, I don't get it. You're failing so fundamentally that you've never had a boyfriend at age 31 and you're going to talk about dating? Like, you're talking about dating when you've never done it. You've never even tried to do it. You've never even struck up a conversation with a man. You've never approached a man. What?
So no, I'm not on that. I did get it for like 3 days. Felt so icky, and I'm very much a person who's like, if there's no peace in it, I don't want it. So I don't feel like dating apps are for me. And I'm not going to say never. Maybe, some desperate moment will force me back on those apps. But for now, I'm off it. I'm just living my life, keeping busy with things like this podcast and bringing you guys along for the journey.
Dating apps they're mostly for hooking up. You can get some pretty good dates. 3 days is nothing. Like, you won't have even gotten a match in the first day. You wouldn't even, if you've only been on dating apps for 3 days, you haven't even like actually made a decent profile. You don't know what you're doing. You haven't developed any riz. You don't understand what conversations you should be having with men. There's going to be tons of men on there who are willing to go on a date with you, but you have to also like know how to communicate and hold a conversation with them. But 3 days is not even an attempt. As a woman, I'm sorry, but that's not even an attempt at using dating apps. How could it be? You could within like 3 months, you could have talked on dating apps with 100+ men. You could have gone on multiple dates with some of these men. You should. You absolutely should. To at least get some perspective. At least one. How have you not gone on one? I'm saying at minimum 2. I'm giving you a minimum of 2 dates to go on from dating apps, women. Because sometimes, I guarantee that one of those times of the 2, one of those guys is going to misrepresent themselves, right? Statistically, most men are going to somewhat misrepresent themselves. Some will outright lie about certain aspects of themselves. Or just like leave things vague. Basically, you're going to get a perception from somebody's dating profile that's different than who they are. That's going to happen basically every single time you go on a date from a dating app. There's rare exceptions where people kind of do a good job of representing themselves through their profile and through the conversations they have with you that lead to the date. But that is a huge rarity. And so what's valuable here about going on these dates is, first of all, you're going to learn how to go on a date in general, but also you're going to learn about how your perspective, right? Like, go back after the date, look at their profile again, and think about what assumptions you made about them, what you kind of assume, what you assumed about them based off of what they put on their profile, and what dots you try to connect that didn't really connect, and which ones did connect. Because what you're actually doing is you're learning about yourself. You're reflecting on what you did right and you did wrong, right? Because you're going to have expectations and assumptions, especially somebody like you who's super into romantic comedies. It's like your big thing. That's miles away from reality, right? And you need to start pulling yourself down to reality. So going on literally 2 dates from a dating app, it's going to do wonders for your dating life. Even though almost certainly those dates won't lead to a relationship, you need to go into these dates also not looking for marriage, but looking for like a long-term relationship, or at least a short-term. Like, don't even put the pressure of maybe I want to date this person for a year. Put the pressure of maybe I want to date this person for a couple months, kind of see what dating's like, see if I like it or I don't like it. That's all you got to do. You don't have to be like, I need to find my husband. I need Ryan Gosling to show up in a horse, like on a horse. You're putting all this pressure on yourself for something that most people figure out when they're a teenager. And that's kind of sad, right? And you need to do a lot of reflection on why that is. Men and women need to do that heavily, and how you're failing. And you can't blame women for it. You can't blame men for it. It's not a society thing. It's a you thing. It's you that's struggling. And that's almost always due to a lack of self-reflection, a lack of not knowing yourself. Which is why you're lacking in confidence, right? That's probably why you chose an improv class specifically. First of all, improv is pretty fun. You're going to find funny people. You're going to have a good time. But it's also going to build your confidence because you're going to learn, hey, I actually am funny. I actually can turn nothing into a good time, because that's what improv is. Improv, you're usually on a stage with one other person, and you're turning nothing into gold. That's what you need to be able to do, not only in your own personal life when you're alone to have a lot of fun, turn sitting in a waiting room into having a blast because you're thinking about great memories. You're thinking about stuff you want to do. You're thinking about something funny that happened, right? You're imagining something crazy. But also, you need to be able to do that with another person, because when you're in a relationship, you're with another person for a long time. So you need to also kind of learn the skill of how to bring them into that world, right? How to have a back and forth. That's the skill you're learning a lot in improv, is you're bouncing off the other person, right? You're stuck in this imaginary scenario, and you're building it to something funny to make the rest of the class laugh, right? You're building a story. And when you're dating somebody, like say you're on a road trip, like a long road trip, you're stuck with somebody for hours upon hours with literally nothing to do but talk to each other and enjoy each other and get to know each other and tell funny stories and make jokes. And all this is actually very easy, but it does require effort. Ideally, that effort would have been put in when you were in your teens or your early 20s, but for a lot of people, it wasn't. But that doesn't mean you're out of time. That you are not out of time. You can do it now. Start doing it now. Please, I need you to, because I need you to be happy. And a lot of people, it's like they just overlook how they're unhappy. Hell, whatever, I don't need to date. If you don't need to date, then why are you online complaining about it? Because it seems like it's a major thing that's keeping you down, keeping you depressed, saying that it's hopeless. If you have no hope, you ain't happy. You got a giant hole in your life. And I don't know, I think you should start fixing it.